All right.
Now you'll probably be able to share it.
Okay.
Okay. Hello and welcome. We're late because we started over on my personal page, which wasn't going to work. When I say we, I mean me, because I'm like running the technical side of things, and I think we have learned that shouldn't be the case, but I am. So there you are. Welcome to our first episode / meeting of the Coffee Klatch. And so yesterday, Nicole and I were kind of talking about how we would really like it if we could do something kind of social right now. And we both kind of were thinking the same thing, which is really cool. Because we both kind of had this thought mutually. And we were like, we should get together and have coffee, across the country from each other. And we were talking about what we could call it. And Nicole said Coffee Klatch. And for some reason, I'd been thinking the same thing. But I don't really have a reason for why I was thinking that. And Nicole has a really great story. It was just one of those like mind meld things, but I like her story and reasoning.
My grandma used to get together with her friends, I think some cousins, and they would always call it a coffee klatch. And they'd go to someone's house, drink coffee, have coffee cake, and just kind of socialize. And I remember when I was really little, so it's a really vague memory. But she took me to one, and they just, sat around and drank their coffee and ate their cake and talked. And so that's kind of when we were talking about what we were going to do. It seemed apropos.
It does indeed. I don't have cake, but I do have coffee in my raccoon mug. It's a ninja raccoon. I got this at Disney World in Epcot in Japan in the store Mitsukoshi, which is one of my favorite places to go there. He's very cute. You guys know I like raccoons. So this is kind of like Evan if he were a little badass.
I actually have tea today because I didn't feel like making coffee. But I have also so cute my Fight Me mug. It is an Angry Bird. And it says Fight Me. But I do have cake because I made angel food cake last night.
Oh, lucky.
I know. It's good.
I didn't have any cake. We had cake, but it's gone now because my kids are home 24 hours a day. So there's nothing that is safe. If it's not nailed down, it's being eaten. We've already gone through a rasher of bacon, whatever that actually is.
I was like, what constitutes a rasher?
I have no idea. I've heard it before, and I thought it sounded like it's one of those things that when you read it in a book, when you're reading, and I feel like it's always like historical, English books, and it's like there's a rasher of bacon. And then, like, they're always, like, going out to have, like, a picnic, and it's, like, cold chicken and cheeses, and somehow it sounds good, even though I would not want to eat cold chicken. What, now you're hungry?
Yeah, now I want some fried chicken.
Oh, I would like fried chicken. That sounds good.
One thing I can't make myself.
Yeah. So we thought, and if you're wondering, I am knitting because if you went to coffee with me, that is probably what I would be doing. So I picked up my, this elementary wrap, which is a free pattern on Purl Soho. And I've been working on this like since I learned to knit last year because it's boring. So I've made like 100 things in between it. But it is one of those things that I can work on while I talk because you pretty much can't mess it up. So it's a good coffee item. So we were thinking that today we would talk about books, about romance novels, and about like our first romance novels, our favorite ones, and we would love it if you jumped in the comments and shared your favorites. And then when we are done talking about these, you guys can we're going to do like an AMA, like Ask Me Anything, which is going to be a regular feature on our Coffee Klatch. So if you have some questions for us, dump those in the comments as well, and we will answer them when we are done nattering about books.
Which is what we do quite a bit normally.
Yes, it is. So this is basically probably a cleaned up version of our daily text stream.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I'm just being honest. We're going to be a little more presentable. Though I have been wearing these sweats for 3 days. That's just true.
What are we going to do with you?
I don't mind admitting it. They're comfortable. So
I don't plan on getting out of sweats for a while.
No, it's really cold. It snowed here yesterday.
Yeah, we're cold.
Yeah.
Rain. Rain.
Yeah. I think this is actually like the first or second snow we've had. And it, of course, came in March, which actually has been the norm the last few years. My mom was telling me that one time, because my mom she's from Kansas originally, but she grew up in Southern California. So like she was not used to cold weather at all. And she was telling me that one time her parents came to visit in mid-April back in the 80s, and like it snowed in mid-April. So that kind of blew my mind because I didn't know that it ever did that here. But
yeah, it snowed on my wedding in mid-April.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. I've seen that picture of you guys freezing cold.
Yep.
So, yeah, do you want to start? How did you start reading romance? Like, what was your gateway?
So, my grandma, my other grandma, not my Coffee Klatch grandma, my other grandma, she has and still has this little bookcase in her hallway. And when I would spend the night, I would look for something to read. And I actually, I'm very well prepared because I have my stack of books here. And she had a bunch of Janet Oak books. Yeah, Janet, I don't know. And I picked up one, which I don't have the one that I first picked up, which was They Called Her Mrs. Doc. And I like stayed up all night and I was like bawling the whole way through, which is not really a traditional romance novel because it's like, it goes from like, I don't remember how old she is when it starts, but it's like it goes through their whole life. Like it's not like happily ever after at the end. It's like it goes well into them having children and then maybe even grandchildren. Anyway, so I would read all those. I didn't really think of that as being a romance novel, but I would read all of her Jeanette Oak books and wonder why all they ever did was like hold hands. Nothing more. Which is why I'm so glad in college my roommate handed me a Nora Roberts book. And I was like, oh, here's all the more than holding hands I've been waiting for.
So, yeah, and I think the multi-generational, like the story that spans like a long time like that, but like feels romance-esque is really common in inspirational fiction because that is where I started. I would say that was like my romance gateway too. And I was trying to think of this last night and I can't remember if somebody does like help me out. It was, I don't think it was Jeanette Oak. I did read Jeanette Oak. And I read Lorraine Snelling, and those I was reading really young. And there was one about Swedish immigrants, and the woman's name was Ingeborg. And I love that name. I know, it's great. And but she went through like 2 husbands over the course of the series, and but then like at the point where the last one like froze to death, I was like, I'm out. Cause like, and so, well, it was bad. I was thinking about it yesterday actually, cause I was trying to, like drum up my old book memories and I was like, that's no good. But then I read a lot of Francine Rivers, who's amazing, but her stuff is like really, like I remember reading The Scarlet Thread. And I read that before I was married, and then I read it again after I was married and like quit reading for the night and like went to sleep and couldn't remember. Like I woke up furious at my husband and then realized I was actually furious at the husband in the book. And it wasn't like I woke up so mad. I was like, I think I hate you. And he was like, I didn't do anything to you. And then so I read a lot of Francine Rivers, and then Lori Wick, who I would say is the most like traditional kind of like romance that I had read at that point in inspirational, and I wouldn't have told you that I was reading romance either. Right. And I remember there's one called The Princess, and it is about a woman who's like a normal girl, and this prince who's a widower who is I feel like this is very revealing to me. Like, wow. This is foundational to me, clearly. And so he marries her, and like she doesn't like share a room with him for a really long time. And there's this point like in the middle of the book where like she opens the connecting door to her rooms, and he comes in and like takes her hand and leads her into his room. And I was like, oh my goodness. Like I know what happened vaguely. But I remember that feeling like That was my first, like, my thought that you had, where I'm like, oh, I would like for that to go a little further. I could make a whole meal out of that in my imagination. So, and then weirdly from there, picked up Harlequin Presents. Kind of not surprisingly at all.
Do you remember which was your first Harlequin Presents?
I do, and I finally found the title. And I'm gonna actually just look. I think it's by Miranda Lee, and it took me. Oh no, it's not by Miranda Lee. I remembered it as being by Miranda Lee, forever and ever. So I was looking for this book because I've told this story like 100 times, and thought that it was by her, and it isn't. And so this is why I couldn't find it. So now I'm scrolling through my list here because I have it. I'm maybe not gonna find it, but it was. It's by one of the Australian authors, and it was about, I'll tell you what it's about while I like look for it. It was, it's about like this woman, and it's set in Melbourne, and she's in this like loveless marriage, but of course, oh, there it is. It's by Helen Bianchin, called The High Society Wife. And I just actually rebought it. Like I just found a used copy online and bought it, and so I have it at my house, but I don't have it with me. But yes, this was my very first romance novel. Like my very first Harlequin Presents. And he is like so mean to her. And like he is. And I remember like I read a lot of historical, or like the princess one was really like high fantasy contemporary. And this one was set in Melbourne, and he had like this flashy car, and like they couldn't talk to each other because of like all their feelings. But they had like amazing like sparky sex, and that's like all they could do, and like it was so glamorous, and I like my mind was blown by this book, and I was like I hate him, but like I want him to love her forever. And like when she like breaks down his walls, and at the end he's like, of course I have loved you all this time, I was like, that's what I was here for. This is the payoff. So that is kind of like, whoo, that's my origin story right there. That's like when I found my spiritual home. So what was your first Nora? Because I know Nora is your entryway.
River's End. So that's one of her romantic suspense, and like, I have to. There's two I get kind of mixed up. I need to go back and reread it because it's been a while. I think this is the one where her like parents were brutally murdered, and she had to go live with her grandparents in like Washington or something, and they had like a cabin or a bread and breakfast or something, I don't know. And
that's very Helmy, actually.
Oh, wait, it gets even more so. The hero, it's either the cop who investigated its son or something like that, unless I'm confusing books again. And then they're like in a tent at some point camping, and that's where they profess their love for each other.
Sure.
But it's very suspenseful. It had a really great twist. And I had never read anything like it. It was like, oh my God, this is what I have been looking for. He was like, you know, in quite the opposite fashion, a very good guy. And she was like shy and traumatized. And it was just really, really, I don't know. I just loved it, and set out to read like every Nora ever written, which I've yet to do. It may be an impossible task.
Well, it's funny because it's like that was my exact feeling too. Because I had read primarily like other than like kids books, and I did read like Harry Potter and things like that. Like I had been reading primarily inspirational, and I read a lot of mysteries. I read a lot of inspirational like thrillers and mysteries, and like a lot of dude books like Ted Dekker and Frank Peretti, and like they were really gross, but they were really suspenseful, and I liked that. And then also just like a ton of Western historical books, and there was often romance in them, and a lot of times they were really tragic. I read a lot of Amish. But again, these weren't like necessarily genre romance. So sometimes people didn't end up with anyone. And like, I just remember what I was living for was for that hint of romance, even in mysteries. Like it was always like, I was looking for the subplot. And every time I was like, if only I could be sure they would end up together because I'm so tired of being heartbroken by all these books. And like, if only I could find a book that had more of the romance in them. And actually, if I go back far enough, there was a mystery series when I probably started reading it when I was 11 or 12. And it was about, they were the Jenny McGrady mysteries by Patricia Rushford. And they were Christian books. And they were set on the Oregon coast and in Portland because Patricia lives in Oregon. And so that's like clearly some source of inspiration for me. And then the grandmother was like a former FBI agent, and the girl's father was declared dead by the FBI, but she was sure that he was still alive. So there was this like running mystery, and she had a boyfriend, and like I lived for the romance part, and I got so frustrated when there were like like love triangles and like things that were maybe not going to work out, and then I read and then the grandmother had her own series of mysteries, and I read those too, and she had like a nice little romance and stuff too. So it's like, I loved that stuff, and I always knew that I wanted more of the romance, but I didn't know there was a whole genre of it. So when I found it, it was like, oh, this is everything that was my favorite part about all those other books that like there wasn't enough.
Yeah. Even when my friend, she gave me this Nora Roberts book, and I still remember in her room, like, it might have been a whole wall, and she had like she had so many Nora Roberts books. And she would let me, borrow them all, back in before ebooks and whatnot.
Yeah.
And even then it was like, I just knew I liked Nora Roberts. I did not know there was like this whole genre. So when I like actually set out to write and discovered like, oh, more people do this, it was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Why would I ever read another piece of literary fiction again?
I made a study out of not overly reading a lot of literary fiction, though.
I think there's something to the timing, because I was an English major, so I was reading nothing but literary fiction.
Yeah, understandable. I was not an English major, so I was doing a lot of not doing my assigned reading in class. And I knew that I did not enjoy that. Like, I knew I didn't enjoy that kind of fiction. I'm sorry for people who love, I actually think that I have like,
I'm sure I could find you some that you would like.
I'm sure you can. I think that what I have is like an ingrained prejudice that like a lot of people feel toward genre fiction and romance, because in elementary school I had a really high reading level, and they had just started doing the accelerated reader. Did you guys do that?
Mm-mm.
So they still have it in public school. My kids have to do it. And like now it's called AR, but it's the same thing where like you have to read the book and then you get tested on what you know about the book, and like you have to read at the level that you test into. And so I was like a kid who wanted to read kid books, and I tested into like this ridiculously high reading level, and so they gave me like books that made me wish I were dead. And it like killed my love of reading. And like I remember like, and I'm not popular like probably with and it's like, it's not the teacher's fault. They have like quotas to meet and things like that now. Like, but I remember like my son's teacher, they were kind of doing the same thing to him, and I was like, but I don't care if he reads like really, because I was like, I want him to read, and I didn't like reading for a long time because I was good at it, and I felt like I was punished for being good at it.
Yeah.
Like I remember I had to read The Homecoming by Cynthia Voigt when I was like 9, and I was not prepared for that. It's like 1,000 pages long. I'm exaggerating that. I'm sorry if anybody likes Homecoming, but like Homecoming and Dicey's song might have scarred me for life. I was not ready. And it was endless. That was the first time I remember being like, I don't think I'll ever get through this. And I was just way too young to read it, So, so like the desire to read for pleasure and like to protect that, I got really early, because the assigned reading that I had was so like, it felt labor intensive. So I've always just liked, like I said, like genre fiction. Like I like mysteries and like genre within, and thrillers and things like that. Like genre even within, like I was reading primarily inspirational. And I think like the first year that I read romance, I think I read like 300 Harlequin Presents.
It was all, once I graduated college, because I had a pretty heavy reading load of work, and I read all of my assignments. I was a good girl. Um, uh, um, what was I going to say? Oh, it's just I would just get all of the Nora books I could and read them all. I mean, hers are pretty long. I mean, not long compared to some literary fiction, but like Montana Sky is one of the ones I read. It's one of my favorites. And I mean, it's like a hefty book because it's like three stories in one. Um, but I for years she was the only person I really read, the only author I read, because when you write 500 million books, you can live off of them for quite a while.
Yeah.
I'm
That's
sure
funny because
my Nora shelf before it.
I did the complete opposite because I came in at category romance. So I remember having, like I said, I thought for years that book by Helen Bianchin was by Miranda Lee. Because what I remembered was I remembered a woman with the red dress on the cover, and I knew it was a Harlequin Presents. So I came at it, completely from the perspective of I figured out what Harlequin line I liked, and I could find them at the book exchange that we had, in town, and so and this was a blah 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 Maisey's origin story, but we had one car and we lived way out of town and we were really poor, and so a lot of times I would go in with my husband to go to work when I only had one kid, so that wasn't that hard. He was 18 months old or something. No, he had to have been 2 because I think I was pregnant with my second one, who is 12. And so I would go just with my toddler and go to Goodwill or to the book exchange and comb around and find all the romance novels that were the color that I knew I liked. Because the Harlequin Desire, Harlequin Temptation, it was Silhouette, Desire a lot of times with the older ones, and Temptation as well, and then Blaze and Presents. And I think Presents was what I read the most of, but I also really liked the Desires, and there were a lot more cowboys I think in Desire at the time. So I remember really clearly it was all ranchers and nannies and things like that, which really appealed to me because also I read Sarah Plain and Tall in school, which I loved. So I feel I've always been on a quest to recreate Sarah Plain and Tall but sexy.
Yeah,
that's the dream.
That is the dream.
It is. I want more mail order bride stories. If I could change one thing about the book market, I would make historical westerns a viable career, not so that I could write them necessarily, but so that I could read more of them.
Yeah, they're very hard to find. I love, I don't know the title. Lorraine Heath has I think it was a series, but I think I probably have only read the one book, and it was set after the Civil War. In Texas. I think it has Texas in the title.
I think I have that.
It's really good.
Yeah.
It's really good. I mean, I love Lorraine Heath anyway. But I can't remember. Someone recommended that to me, and I just loved it. And I actually didn't read historicals for a very long time because I was a U.S. history minor, and I love U.S. history, and I could not really care about European history or anything like that. So Regencies and stuff didn't appeal to me. So I was I don't know about that time period. I don't care. And then I can't remember I think it was Julianne Long who you recommended to me. I think that was
it was what I did for Duke.
Regency that I read. And I'm I don't need to know or care about the history at all.
No, not in that book.
And then I read the entire, what is that series?
Penny Royal Green.
Yes. Penny Royal Green. I read it. I've read most of those books multiple times. I read the whole series. And then Lisa Kleypas and Lorraine Heath. And I actually probably read more historicals now than contemporaries, which I never read historicals for a very long time.
I'm the same. I read a lot of categories and then kind of started looking for, I still read a lot of category. Not as much as I did just because I don't read as much as I did then when I was home more with kids and all that kind of stuff. But when I started looking for longer books, what I found is that a lot of the, I'm going to say this really ironically because I obviously write small town Western. I had a hard time finding ones that kind of had the same emotional kind of grit Because with Presents, like I said, the hero was like mean. And I was like, yes, please. So like I'm always looking for that kind of really powerful hero, which is what I think I get out of Cowboys. Like, you know, because they kind of have that. They're not the same, but they're like a law unto themselves.
Yeah.
And so I found that more in historicals, because you could read a duke or like this merchant who's like rich beyond anything but not accepted by society because he works for his money, God forbid.
Yeah, I think that's, you know, historical. There's so much in the time period that allows it to have an emotional poignancy that is harder to create in a contemporary setting where we have so many of our own choices, and it doesn't really matter if we follow certain rules and stuff like that.
It's true.
Yeah.
And I think you get that a little bit with, I always say that Presents is like a contemporary historical.
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot more like society rules and things like that. And I don't care if it's accurate at all. I just do it how I do it. But for me, like, because that's what I was reading, like writing Presents was such an obvious choice for me. And I feel like, just knowing you and your books as I do, well, I feel like you're much more Nora-esque in general, actually, because you kind of also do a little bit of everything. But I'm curious why you started with contemporary, do you think, instead of suspense?
Well, it never occurred to me to write suspense. I could not explain to you why. It was just not a thought in my head. I really loved Nora's. She has these, and they were category books. I don't know what, you know, I have like the rebranded ones. I don't know what categories they originally were. But Silhouette something. And they were like, she had family sagas, and like it was like brothers and sisters and then their kids, and like the McGregors and Stanislavskis. And I just love those books. And so that's really what I wanted to do. I mean, I loved her romantic suspense too, but they were so big. And I wrote very short, especially in the beginning. So it felt like it didn't feel like something I'd ever be able to do. So I felt like writing short lended itself more to category. And that's when I got involved in the Harlequin boards and stuff. And actually found Super Romance, which was my first category. But like Karina Bliss and Sarah Mayberry were like the two authors that I first like found in category that were like, oh yeah, this is like what I want to do. Of course, those were longer.
What's so funny is that like Sarah Mayberry, it was one of her blazes that I read that I was like, oh my gosh, this is like my dream. Like, it's funny, though, because I never wanted to write, I never thought that I would write Blaze or anything, like, which I didn't, but, like, it is funny, because I did read it, and I loved Anything for You by Sarah Mayberry, loved it, and probably in the same era as you did.
Yeah, I mean, but yeah, I mean, writing intrigue now came from like getting to a place where it was like, oh well, I could do that. But it was not a thought in my head in the beginning. Like I just wanted to write like family sagas that all connected to each other.
That doesn't surprise me. I feel like you do that a little bit in the intrigues though, which is really fun.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's like, for me, I always like going back to family stuff. So it's in whatever I end up writing.
I think that's what I enjoy so much about your intrigues, actually, is that I taught a class like, I don't know, a couple weeks ago at a local writers group. And I was talking about, because it was not a romance class. I was just going to say, I just saw a comment pop up. Genevieve, I'm actually reading Nighthawk for my book club, and I'm really excited about that, by Beverly Jenkins. And I have read Indigo, which I really loved, and I'm super looking forward to reading Nighthawk because it is a Western. So I feel like I hacked the system because I found a good Western to read. And anyway, I was teaching this workshop, and it was multi-genre. So, because it was like for everybody, I was trying to figure out how you talk about character and things like that when you talk about books like mine, there's like no plot. But when you talk about like a thriller, of course, there's a plot. Maybe I'm exaggerating a little bit, but not really. really have plots in my books. They're overrated. I just like people to stand around and talk about their feelings and then make out.
I'm good with that too.
What can you do?
I think that's why we're here.
Yeah. So anyway, I used your intrigues as an example of like how you like that you can't cut corners on character even if a book is short. Because like what I always feel is that even though you can't spend a lot of time like lingering on the characters, they make sense. And I get the sense that they have a whole existing like exterior life, even though we don't have time to see it because the books are shorter and because there is such a heavy plot. But I think because they are kind of family saga-esque, you have that sense of built-in connection. And that keeps it from feeling like you just have like, you know, bomb bots that are out there like dodging explosions on cue. So that's cool anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I think as a reader, I never really thought about it's funny because I think it's because I didn't start reading category, like that was after the fact and more after I wanted to start writing it. So I just read a book and it was a book and I never thought about what kind of book it was or, you know, the labels until I got into wanting to like actually try to write it. So for reading, it was just like, I like this author. We'll read all that they have written unless it's 8 million books.
Yeah. So before we move on to, I'm going to look at some comments and then we can take questions. And before we move on to that, I'm going to have you do a little shameless promo. And then I will do some because you have a book out today.
I do. Covert Complication, right here, is my intrigue that just released today in print with the category books that'll be out in digital on April 1st. But it is available in print as of today. It's the second book in my Badlands Cop series, which is 6 brothers who are all in law enforcement in one way or another. And their father is sort of the bad guy that they're all trying to work together to take down before he ruins their lives.
And if anybody does not know this, you can Amazon Prime this book in print. You can get it from harlequin.com in print. Also, Book Depository ships from, I believe it's shipping from the UK, weirdly, from Book Depository, so it may take longer, but it's free shipping worldwide. Harlequin.com, I believe, is like free shipping if you spend over $25. And you can actually get the category books early there. So if anyone's needing to order stuff in at the moment, you can still definitely get your print books. I am a big print reader and I will not be doing ebooks. So I'm actually doing curbside pickup with my local bookstore. So you can totally get this book, Covert Complication, and it's book 2 in her Badlands Cop series, and you should do it. And then my shameless promo is just that Cowboy for All Seasons is still out and available for you to buy if you have not checked it out already. There's that beauty. Nicole is in that one as well. You all that are watching this video probably already know about it. But it is like binge watching a small town series. It's definitely a brain vacation, super fun contemporary romance, and a little bit of a family saga, I must say, all kind of crunched into one volume. Which has been really fun. So we are going to be taking your questions, and I have to look. I feel like this is so annoying, but I have to look on my phone because most of the time on this little program that I use to do this, the questions pop up in the sidebar, and it is not doing that for me right now. So I was seeing like every like 4th question would pop up, and then I would only see it for like 2 seconds. So I'm having trouble looking at them, but I'm going to look at them now. So apologies for me looking down, although I was looking at my knitting anyway. But oh yeah, April read Desires 2, which is cool. Lori agrees. More mail order bride stories. While I do this, like I said, feel free to throw questions in, and like they can be anything, like related to anything. And if we don't answer you, it's because it made us uncomfortable. But like you can go ahead and ask it anyway. Or because we can't answer it. Or like, I'll just say if I can't answer it. Tracy says yes to family sagas. Stephanie is giving thumbs up to the McGregors. Heather is happy to have these chats during social distancing. We are very happy to be chatting as well. Gloria recommends Janet Daly's Calder books and says we look beautiful. So I will take that because I feel a little bit like the way the interior of like a car smells in the heat. Like that kind of, it's a little stagnant. It's not real glamorous today. Stephanie says, I'm enjoying A Cowboy for All Seasons. I've read spring and summer. Can't put the book down when I start reading. That is so nice to know. I'm not seeing all the questions. Nicole, can you see questions?
Okay.
It's not showing them to me.
But see, I can't do it muted.
Turn it off. Turn my voice off. Make it stop. I'm going to look on. Of course, I have another device at the ready because I always do. Sorry, guys. This is casual. We're being very informal here at the Klatch. That's why I showed up in my sweats.
I don't see any more than you do.
Okay, because it says 27, and I don't think that I'm seeing 27.
Yeah.
So that is frustrating. I'm pulling it up. Oh, you know what? I may have hacked the system.
Did you figure it out?
I might have. April says she's thankful she's older than AR. Yeah, AR was not cool. I love that, Tracy. Tracy says, I was more focused on school, then college and working. Got somewhat interested in Oprah's book club, but quickly lost interest. Fast forward to my late 40s. And became, I got cut off, and now I can't see the other. Addicted, quick, once son was in college, and now I totally have to read always. I love that. And Sheeran stopped in while road tripping. I'm so glad that you did. So if you're not here anymore, Sheeran, hello. And hi to Angie. Christina's still in her PJs. No reason to get dressed. Love it. We're excited you caught us too, April. And Roxanne says, reading A Cowboy for All Seasons now and really enjoying it. So I'm going to click out of that and click back in again because I'm I'm trying to keep up with the questions and it's not showing them to me on my phone. Can I organize them in a reasonable fashion? No, I cannot. Would be really nice if I could. It's not letting me order them, which is annoying. Christine says Kathleen Eagle's books got me hooked on romance. I have not read Kathleen Eagle, but I feel like she's someone that I've heard people talk about. Yes, Sheila, I can see your comment. I can now. Tracy says she's halfway through Secrets from a Happy Marriage. Yay, and it's delightful. Lori asks, here's a question for you both. Did you have any books you plan to read if we have to continue social distancing for a while? I do. So like I said, I am reading Nighthawk by Beverly Jenkins. I'm about to start it because we're doing it for book club, and we don't know if we'll be doing book club, but hopefully we can do something virtual. But I'm really excited to read it. It looks amazing. It's got a really fantastic cover, and that's another book I wish I had sitting next to me right now. The hot cowboy in a long outlaw coat, and he's a bounty hunter, and he's got a dead wife, and it's all my catnip, and I'm really excited. I also just ordered Chasing Cassandra because Nicole recommended it to me, which is Lisa Claypass's new book. And I just read the first J.D. Robb In Death book. And I ordered the second one. So right now that's kind of my, and then, cause also, and most of you have heard us talk about this too, the group of us, the Cowboy for All Seasons authors, read each other's books while we're writing them. So I read a lot and then also probably read an additional 30 books a year, keeping up with these ladies and everything they send to me. So I'm a little behind on my reading right now. I'm in the middle of a Caitlin Cruz Cold River book that won't be out for a year, because I'm lucky, and then also reading is it Secret, the intrigue you're working on? No? It's a part of a continuity that you're doing, and it's very a kind of TV police procedural, which is kind of fun. And I'm reading that too. So yeah, I always have lots of reading, and I'm reading Jackie Ashenden's second Cold River book. Not Cold River, that's Megan's, Deep River. There's a lot of rivers. There's a lot of rivers in romance.
There's a lot of rivers.
There's a lot of rivers. Rivers are a good metaphor.
That's true. Yeah, I just finished Chasing Cassandra last night, I think, which is Lisa Kleypas' new book, and it was really good. So I kind of, which is what I always do, go back and see if there's Kleypas books I haven't read before. So I've been reading the Bow Street Runners series. I read the first one, and I'm just a little bit into the second one, and I'll probably, I think I have the third one on hold at my library.
Oh, the Bow Street Runner ones are really good.
Yeah, so that's what.
The heroes are like little rough in those. I like those.
Yeah, there's a lot. Yeah,
it's my jam.
What else am I reading? Oh, I just read that historical Saved by Her Enemy something.
Oh yeah,
Gilbert.
Yeah, that's actually what I'm like finishing right now.
Yeah, it's a Harlequin historical. Yeah. And it's set in Egypt.
Yeah, it's ancient.
I don't know. They're in a tomb with Pharaoh. It was really good. Really different. I have never read a historical in that time period before, and it was really enjoyable to read just something completely different than I usually read.
Yeah, that is like high level escapism, like really. And like I said, I think the historicals are really hard to find in print, but I think you can order them from harlequin.com. And one of the really cool things about Harlequin Historical is they have really unique time periods that you cannot find other places, ancient Egypt being one of them. So when I saw that one, I was like, sign me up for that. So but I started it, and I had to take a break to read Naked in Death because that was a book club book. So I had to and so now I'm finishing that one. And okay, Penny says, this is amazing and y'all are great. I'm sorry that I said y'all like that. I apologize. I apologize for being such a West Coast Yankee. Are we Yankees on the West Coast? I don't think we are. I don't think we're anything. We were too late to the party.
Yeah.
We settled too late. So she says, love a good cowboy book. What is y'all's favorite book y'all have read that the other wrote? I'm saying y'all. I'm doing it. I'm committing. I apologize. So, gosh, that's really hard.
Because I have literally read almost everything. There's probably some early presents I haven't read, but other than literally everything.
Yeah, I'm the lone holdout in our group that has not read your airplane books, which makes me ashamed to admit I have not read Flight Risk.
Missing out.
I know. I am missing out. I know I am. Megan talks about the book all the time. No, the first one I read of yours was the Farmer's Market books, and I think I didn't ever go back because I started reading your stuff going forward. Gosh, what is my favorite? I mean, I will always have a special place in my heart for the Farmer's Market books because they were the first books of yours that I read. But you particularly have written, because I love the suspense ones are so fun. I love Wyoming Cowboy Marine. Hilly? Is the heroine? Yeah. I love that one out of the suspense, a particular lot, because it was definitely a specific weird thing that I kind of where it's she's a hill girl. It reminded me of how what I always wanted was for one of those boy books Hatchet to be about a girl and they weren't. Or there was one about a girl that was raised in the jungle. Anyway, it had a lot of things in it that I personally really like. And then I love the Jack and Rose, Cowboy Seal
Redemption.
I love that one. Just because particularly Rose is not my cup of tea as a heroine. So I bet you find it odd that I like that one. But I think that sometimes when someone can make something work that I would tell you I don't normally like, it becomes my favorite one. The other example of that is Thief of Shadows by Elizabeth Hoyt, which is the virgin hero and the heroine who's a merry widow who hates children. And I would have told you there's no way in all the world that I would have liked that heroine. But she wrote her so sympathetic and so, and she was mean, but she had such good reason to be. And if you can make me walk that uphill battle to love that heroine, then that is going to be my favorite book. And I think Yeah, Rose was so prickly and so tough and like so like kind of and compared to like and Jack was a nice guy. You know? Like such a decent kind of hero, and like both of those things are not like my favorite archetypes, but I love that book. They function so well together. So I think anytime something can be the opposite of my catnip and I enjoy it and it's memorable, it becomes my favorite. And then honestly, Wyoming Cowboy Marine is just everything that I like because he's kind of mean and she's like never even seen a man before that she wasn't related to. So that's like obviously my total jam. We're not even like, let's not pretend. That's like, the only thing I was mad about was that there wasn't a sex scene in that one.
Is there not? I can't remember this.
You don't remember that I sent you an all caps email when I finished it and I was like, are you kidding me? And
no.
You were like, there was no time. You were like, it didn't fit into the book and it would have been gratuitous. And I was like, fair, you're absolutely right. Like, it didn't actually need one. No, it was perfect as it was. I was being petulant, as I'm wont to be. All right, anyway, go on.
I don't know. I hate picking favorites of anything without, like, forewarning, so I can do my research and make a list. But I probably, it's kind of like, I always think of, like, those first so fondly, and Part-Time Cowboy was, I'm pretty sure the first, oh no, it wasn't the first book I read of yours, but it was the first cowboy book I'd read. Yeah. I don't think I'd ever read a contemporary cowboy book by anyone before. And it was like, it was, you know, it's like it's what you expect. It's a contemporary Western. And like, I didn't realize that I wanted that because I love a historical Western. I love farmers. I like the people who work the land. I like characters who have that connection. Mm-hmm. And so that always sticks out to me. I still remember certain scenes in that book. I also like the presents that was the Sophia the First.
Oh yeah, because you dared me to write that one.
Because that was our personal little inside joke.
It was. I think that one's called His Forbidden Pregnant Princess, and I'm very bad at remembering the presents titles, but I do remember that one.
Yeah. So that's my favorite presents that I remember. And honestly, our anthology, it's actually been in 2 anthologies, so I'll specify. I like them both, but A Cowboy for All Seasons. I mean, part of that is the enjoyment is heightened because we wrote sisters, and so we got to kind of work together. But
we did the Thule ones together too.
Oh
yeah. I actually really love those.
Yeah.
Basically, yeah. Mine is called Finally His Bride. What's yours called?
Bride by Mistake.
That's right. Yeah, no, we did those. Those were really fun.
Yeah. I mean, it's, we just work well together.
We do. It's true. We just really do. And we have a very similar aesthetic, even though our work is really different and like but there's something about the way we both look at story. I think that like we never leave anything out that the other person thinks is important to a good story. So it's like, I think because of that, our taste just kind of aligns. And also we both work at a similar pace. So it's not really hard, but that kind of goes nicely. Stephanie asked, Maisey, how do you find time to read so many books and write and be a mom? And I know Nicole can kind of speak to this too, because if you don't follow Nicole's page, you may not know, but she's got 2 kids that are... So Nicole and I, my youngest child, who is 10, is the same age as her oldest child, who is 10. And they were literally born on the same day. And we didn't know each other at the time. I remember when you had him. Because I remember vaguely having an awareness that this person I followed online also had a baby.
Because I just had the little thing that said, like, you've been on Twitter for 12 years.
Yeah.
So, we would have kind of...
I think we were... Yeah. I joined Twitter 2 months before she was born. Or 3 months or so before she was born. So I've been on since before. And so we both have young kids. Hers are younger than mine. Mine are, but we like span a gamut with the youngest and the oldest meeting there. My oldest is almost 14. It's terrible. It's terrible. So mine are 13, 12, and 10. And I really just find time to do it like any other job. And I have to say that like right now, that's not even like, I don't even feel like it's fair for anybody to be impressed with me because my husband is a stay-at-home dad. He wasn't always. I think I was more impressive early on. I was, because it's like I sold my first book when I was 9 months pregnant. So with my daughter. So that was 10 years ago. So I got a contract, had a baby 3 weeks later. She was in the NICU for 9 days, and we were in the hospital for like quite a while. And I remember like working on revisions in the hospital bed because I was like, well, what else is there to do? I couldn't necessarily go like pick her up out of the NICU bed. So, and I remember also reading a Lynn Graham Presents while sitting in the NICU. So it's like reading and writing for me has always been kind of an escape through hard things and a great excuse to ignore my housework. So I have always like, I used to literally write with kids climbing on me. When we moved into our house, which is now torn apart and being remodeled, when we moved into it 7 years ago, I remember while my husband was working on things, because we were like between houses and nothing was like secure, I had them in a minivan that had one of those like DVD players in it, and they were watching The Lion King and eating chicken nuggets from McDonald's, and I was sitting in the front seat trying to finish my book. And so I think like in the early days, there was a lot of like really dramatic stuff like that. And now it's like, I'm just kind of spoiled. Like I just go, I have this great office and I just go work. And I know that is not the case for you, Nicole.
Yeah, but you know, my kids are school age now. Although I sold my first book when I was pregnant with my youngest. My husband has a sort of erratic, irregular work schedule. It changes every week. He works 12-hour shifts, sometimes night shift, sometimes day shift. So from the beginning, like I knew that I would never have a schedule. I think when you let go of thinking like you will get like special time to do stuff, you just work it in whenever you can. And so I remember I had an iPod Touch that my mom had given me, and I would hold the baby bottle in one hand and just type on the little touch and then move it to my computer later. Just stuff like that. Because the thing is, I love to write and I love to read. So those are the things I make time for. And yes, I don't always do the dishes or ever vacuum or dust. Because I would rather do other things that I enjoy.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, I think we all have to make like choices with our time. But what you said that resonates with me is the acceptance that you will never have like it's never going to be like you're not waiting for a perfect moment. And I remember like people ask me all the time, like, how do you find a work-life balance? And I'm like, it doesn't exist. Like you're going to sometimes have to like, sometimes something has to get done. And I like last Monday, I edited for 18 hours on Monday. And like, I don't like to do that. I don't want to miss like time at home. Most of the time I don't end up in a situation like that. But sometimes like the work balance goes crazy because something has to get done. And then like yesterday we were setting up my 8th grader to work at home and like be on like Zoom classroom and all this kind of stuff. And I needed to be available in case he needed something. And so I was committed to not doing anything until after he was done with school and after he was set up. So it's like, there's going to be like times where there's balance. And then there's going to be times where you have to like drop everything and kind of be there for your kids or like, you know, or where you have to be like, no, I'm sorry, I have work to get done. And like, you know, you need to like, this is important to me. It's important to us as a family and it needs to get done. And like, then you kind of buckle down and get it done. So it's like life is fluid, I guess. And like what is balanced changes daily. And so I think the acceptance of kind of chaos is a huge part of being able to do that.
Yeah.
And then you, so you have a question, and you kind of touched on this, that says, Nicole, how long have you been writing and publishing?
I wrote actually, I've always written. I had one of those little crates full of like file folders of stories that I had written. When I was 13, I decided I was going to write a novel on my word processor. So that like something I've always done. I didn't actually figure out how to finish a novel till I was a junior in college. And I stumbled upon National Novel Writing Month, and that was the thing that like finally helped me figure out how to finish. So from that point, so that was like 2003, 2002. So it took me another 10 years to sell. Well, I shouldn't say that because I wasn't trying to sell. I was just writing books. And I really got serious about publishing about the time my oldest was born. So about 2009. And then I sold my first book technically I sold it in 2011. It came out in 2012. So that was that was a very long, drawn out process, but it was mostly because I was lazy and it took a long time to do so.
Sheila says, I love your sweatshirt, Nicole. Yeah, Midwest. I was with you when you bought that in the Midwest.
In the Midwest.
Which kind of brings me to our next question, which is April says, any book tours in the future, especially for A Cowboy for All Seasons or its sequel? We would love to, and the situation with the world is ongoing. So our plan is yes. Like, currently our plan is yes, and like, honestly, it will come to pass at some point. It may be closer to the release of the next book than we would like, because what we would like to do is do something before then. We would love to do something in the fall. That was when Jackie was planning on coming from New Zealand, because a lot of that kind of hinges on when Jackie can make that huge haul. And so we are planning on doing that. And honestly, the four of us can't really stay away from each other for a very long length of time. So when we're together, we'll do a thing. So it is definitely going to happen for sure. It's going to be a little bit more pushed out into the future than we would like. But that was kind of already happening just because some of the summer plans and things had changed anyway. And so yeah, we will like keep everybody up to date on that because it's actually a huge priority for us to get to do that. It's something we're all really excited about. So this was supposed to be our like quick little video, and it's still been an hour. Like, we basically are not capable of being on a live video for less than an hour. But we are going to be back at it on Thursday at this same time. And so we're going to be coffee clatching a couple days a week. So join us then if you can. And I am also going to see if I can like upload these to YouTube so that they're easy to kind of find later and watch. Because I have a YouTube channel, which I have not used in I don't know how long. And I wouldn't have even remembered that I did. Except this lady came up to me at the end of the writers conference that I did, and she was like, oh, I saw this video that you did, like, crap people say to romance writers. And then I flashed back to this time when the, like, crap people say videos, which is censored because I'm being a lady, that was, like, going around the internet, and that I did one. It really did say crap, though. Yeah, that I made that video, like, 8 years ago, and I didn't remember that I did, so apparently that exists. The internet's forever. But yeah, so all that to say, we'll be back here having coffee on Thursday. We hope that you can join us. And I'm shamelessly reading this comment from Julie because it's complimentary to me. She says, broke down Cowboy, hooked me on cowboy romances. Before that, it was mostly paranormal romance or romantic women's fiction. So I'm just going to hold that close to my heart because I like being a cowboy gateway drug. So thank you guys. So Thursday at 12 Pacific. What's your time zone, Nicole? Central?
Central.
2 Central. You guys are the time zone that always gets left out.
I know that. Very true.
It's
well,
true.
Not here. It's actually not true for me.
Well, it's not true for you, but like I never see it. It's always like anyway. So that 12, 2, and 3, depending on where you are at in this great nation. And I cannot translate for those of you who are not, and I'm not giving more time zones. I'm not going to England and Australia, and it isn't because I don't love you, it's because I can't do math that fast. So, times for Americans only. I didn't mean it that way. You guys know that. That just like was funny. All right. So we'll see you on Thursday then. And until then, don't eat all your snacks, or do. I'm not here to judge. Bye.